I'll do Gavin's and mine, and then you can do the Patreon.
Okay, sure.
All right.
Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 86 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the #1 podcast in Canada. We're recording on Monday, June 26, 2017.
All right. I'm Marty, hunter and sports shooter in rural southern Ontario.
As always, I'm your host. My name is Andrew. I'm a recovering libertarian, a competitive shooter, and a firearms instructor at Ragnarok Tactical.
And we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. The edited version of the show is available on Stitcher and at iTunes. And links. Okay, that's about it. You can also check out the podcast on Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast and Instagram at Instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We need your help. To support the show, visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon today. For just $1 an episode, you get a higher quality, uncensored version of the audio-only show. And the more you pledge, the better the better the rewards are. I actually just sent Jonesy a t-shirt today, and I hope he gets it in time for Canada Day.
Excellent. Man, I've never had to read Gavin's part before. His links in his section of the show notes are not readable.
Yeah, no, but they're easy to click on for our listeners. So if you visit the show notes, you can just click the link for Stitcher or iTunes. How you're listening to the podcast, if you're not already using Stitcher or iTunes, I'm not entirely sure. But the links are there should you wish to enjoy them. So let's do, what are we drinking? Marty, what are you drinking?
Crown Vanilla and Coke Zero.
It's a Crown kind of night. I'm drinking the Crown Royal Maple. 2 ice cubes. The hydro to make the ice cubes is getting expensive, you know?
Yeah, it's catching up on all of us.
Well, I guess we can skip the OAS match since we've only got 2 out of the people that I was planning on having talk about that. We can talk about service rifle, though.
Are we? Yeah, I guess we'll do Galt and the next one, Waterford. Maybe do those two together because that's this weekend, right?
Yeah, this weekend's... Waterford's this weekend, and then maybe we can get Gavin and Tyler back on, or Jeff, to talk about that and recap Galt.
Yeah. All right, service rifle.
Without them is unfair. Yeah, service rifle. This past weekend was the second service rifle match for the Ontario Rifle Association, which means it's my second service rifle match of the season. And this time I actually managed to shoot all of the ammunition without having any catastrophic rifle failures, so I'm going to go ahead and just call that a win.
Now, the rifle that made it through the match, is that also built in the Northeast?
No, the rifle that made it through the match was a Franken gun. Definitely not made in the Northeast, although the barrel is from a company in the Northeast, and the barrel performed adequately. Unfortunately, everything else, including me, did not perform so adequately because I made the mistake of re-zeroing the optic and going, well, close enough. Starts at 4. I'll just dial up from there. Not realizing that the muzzle device that I changed and the optics change and the lower receiver changed somewhere along the line. I changed enough parts that it threw out my 100-yard 0x4 milliradians, and it threw out my subsequent zeros as we move further back. Service rifle, the closest range is 25 yards, and the furthest range is 500 yards. At 500 yards, my known good zero at 500 was out by 2 additional from where it should have been, not counting the 4 mil radians that I was out by at 100 yards. So I should have only had to dial up like 3.2, and I actually ended up dialing up like 5.2. So that was super fun. I was nowhere even close.
So with the ORA service rifle, do you guys get like sighting rounds?
There are some sighting rounds. It depends a little bit on the match. There are the actual event, the weekend, consists of 4 matches, matches 11 through 14. There are sighters, including at the 500. There are 5 sighter rounds available. There's also sighters at 200, which is where we start the day. So you get 5 sighters, 2 minutes to do 5 sighters at 200. And then the next opportunity to do sighters is when you're at 500. So the assumption is sort of that you need to know where you're zeroed when you start, because you're starting, like, the matches start at 200 yards and then work forward from there. So we start at 200, we end up at 100. We start match 12 at 100. We end up at 25. We start match 13 at 300 and end up at 100. And then we start match 14 at 500 with deliberates again. So you get 2 minutes with 5 sighters, and then we end up at 100 for that. So there's only a couple opportunities to do those sighters. So when I moved back to the 500, I was fully expecting to dial my 3 mils of adjustment like normal, 3.2 mils of adjustment like normal. Yeah, wasn't even close. Way low, impacting the bottom of the target. So threw on 2 more mils, and it was close. I got some hits, but I did abysmally on match 14. I came in dead last with 42 out of 250 possible points.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was abysmal. But match 12, I came in first place, 267 with 18 VBuls out of 300 possible points. Match 12 is the rundown match from 100 yards. So it starts at 100 with snaps, so the target appears, shoot around. It's a very short exposure. It's only 3 seconds, so the target appears for 3 seconds, and then it disappears for 2, and then it appears for 3, so on and so forth. And you're moving into the kneeling position when the target appears. Then we have movers at 100 yards. There's nothing exciting about movers at 100 yards. Basically, just aim in the center, and you pretty much hit them. Favor slightly to the side towards which they're moving, but it's not like when you're shooting further away where you have to lead the target at all. And then it moves forward 75 yards, 50 yards, 25 yards, and then you're done. So I did well on that, but I mean, I expect to do well on that. That's basically CQB type targets. It is fun to do the movers in close
targets that are moving slightly.
Well, yeah, it's fun to do the movers that are in close, because there's on match 12 there's movers at 100 yards and also at 50 yards. But the movers aren't like when you're far away, they require a lead. Like when we're shooting movers at 300 yards, sort of aim for the leading edge of the target. When you're shooting at 100 yards, you don't really need to lead them very much. You just sort of favor the direction they're traveling. Yeah. 50 yards, there's no lead at all. You just shoot them in the wristwatch and hope for the best. It was a good match. We had service rifle takes a lot of targets to run. So it's shot on a military range with a butt system. So there are people in the butts operating the target, so they're safely undercover, and the targets are on sticks that they operate by hand. So they stick the target on the stick up over the berm, and that's how they manipulate the target. So there's different targets that we shoot for different things. A lot of different figure 12s. The figure 12 is the head and shoulders of a charging soldier. The figure 11, which is your full-size charging soldier, Herman the German, so you can see from his boots to his helmet. The scoring zone is sort of his belly button in the middle of the target area. It's actually indicated on the target where his wristwatch is actually the actual center of the target. And we also use the figure 14, or the Hun's head, which is just it's a man with a mustache wearing a helmet. So the different targets at the different distances are different. They have different points of aim because they don't all have the same center. So So there's some knowledge required because you can't just always aim for the wristwatch or aim for the face because that's not always the center of the target. There's a couple of targets where we actually shoot two different targets at the same time. They're on there's a frame that goes up, so there's a figure 12 and a figure 11. So the figure 12 you aim in the chin, whereas the figure 11 you aim for the wristwatch. But the figure 12 is just the top half of a figure 11 target, so they look the same. It's just a different amount of target exposed, but you have to aim for very different places on it, so it screws with a lot of people, which is, it's kind of fun. I think the one stage, I think it requires a total of 6 targets to complete the stage. So there's a lot to do when you're in the butts because you have to keep track of which target it's. When you have 4 figure 12s, you have to remember which one is the one that it's time to use because it matters for scoring because they're used for different things. So if you're using them for snaps versus movers, when it comes time to score them, you want to score them for the appropriate thing. You don't want them to have all of their, 200 rounds on a single target. That would make scoring difficult.
Now, I don't know how far into service rifle you want to go, but you want to talk about what platform is recommended?
I wouldn't say recommended, but the popular platform is definitely the AR-15 series of rifles, and the thing that I like with it is this is where the AR-15 shines. So it's service rifle is based loosely on the primary weapons test number 3 that the Canadian Forces use. It's actually much closer to the CAFSAC course of fire that they use at the Canadian Armed Forces small arms concentrations. That's like the national level annual military match. So using an AR-15 is going to be very similar to the C7 that the military is using when they shoot these matches. So you're going to do well at it because that's what it's laid out for. They are designed with 5-round magazines in mind. So there is, the average section, the average stage in a match is 10 rounds. So it'll be 10 rounds of snaps at 100 and then 10 rounds with moving targets at 100 and then 10 rounds of something else and so on and so forth through the duration of that match. And the average match is about 55 rounds or so. I think there might be one match that's only 50 rounds, but most of the matches are out of the 4. 2 of them for sure, 55 rounds. I think there's one that's 50 and one that's 60, something like that. You could definitely use other rifles, but you would be at a disadvantage if you're not using a detachable box magazine. So if you wanted to use, an AR-10 pattern rifle or a Swiss Arms Black Special or a VZ-58, I think some of these options are ballistically going to be better choices than others. But as long as you have the ability to get a detachable box mag in so you can get the mag change and get your 10 rounds, and being a semi-auto is definitely advantageous, although I have seen this shot with a Lee Enfield, which is a ton of fun.
But basically, you're looking at modern sporting rifle is kind of what you're going to see out here.
Yeah, generally anything modern, anything semi-auto, anything with a detachable box mag, generally intermediate cartridges. This match, I don't think we had anybody that wasn't shooting an AR-15, and the same thing for the first match of the season. Pretty well everybody was shooting the AR-15.
Yeah, I think somebody's robbing your house, and your dogs are attacking them.
Well, fingers crossed. Should we mute this? I don't know how bad it's coming through.
It's not that bad. You can just hear it in the background.
Okay. Somebody's picking up rocks from the yard.
What about optic-wise?
Sorry, I think you were asking me about optics, right?
What is that? Optics, like what should I be looking at? Is my red dot or my 10 to 50 by 60 good choices?
I wouldn't say either of them are bad choices. I just, again, they may not be ideal. Like, you could definitely shoot this match with iron sights. At 500 yards, you won't see your target indicator. So when you're doing your zeroing at 500 yards, I'm positive you'll want binoculars or a spotting scope to see if you're on paper or not, because you wouldn't be able to see a 6-inch indicator. The 6-inch indicator is a It's an orange circle that we put on the target, to the center of it being where the bullet hole is. So doing that with iron sights,
should we just take a second and talk? Should we just take a second to the butt system, because that's something that's very unique to military ranges. I've not seen that at any other range.
Yeah, okay. So I kind of touched on it, but the detail of the butt system is in a military gallery range, there's sort of a first berm before the targetry where it's excavated and there's a concrete bunker installed and dirt piled on top of that concrete bunker. And the concrete bunker allows personnel to be downrange in a safe area where they can manipulate the targets. So for the handheld targets, the targets that are on 1x2 sticks, basically, they can safely grab the bottom of the stick and hold it up, and the target will be well above that first berm. The personnel are all in a protected location, but they can manipulate the target. There's also a system of target frames that can be lifted, and when they're in the lifted position, the frame can be seen over that first berm because it's above the height of the bunker, and then the target can be retracted down below the berm to a working height where a person standing on the ground can see where the bullet holes are, put indicators in, patch the targets, do the scoring, so on and so forth. And then further back, another 25 or 30 yards in the case of the range that we were on this weekend, there's the main berm where the bullets actually impact. So bullets are going over your head when you're working in the butt system, and impacting.
Yeah, I think just
shooting through the target, and then
just to simplify it, there's a bunker system, so there's guys in the bunker, and you're shooting basically over their heads, and they can raise the targets up above the bunker. So you shoot the targets, they lower the targets, they can score them, mark them, raise the target back up again. And yeah, as Anisha, when you're working in the bunker, splash where the bullet hits, and then a second later you'll hear that crack from the sound. So it's kind of a different experience as well, being in the butts.
Yeah, it definitely messes with some people. The first couple of times they've done it, I've seen that. I guess for some of the experienced guys, like, you kind of forget that rounds are going, 6 or 8 feet above your head. Because, I mean, they are 6 or 8 feet above your head, but occasionally you'll get somebody that's shooting a little bit low. So you get that little bit of rain of dirt because they hit the pile that's on top of the bunker. So you get a little bit of the dirt coming over from the impact. And it happens sometimes. And same thing, somebody will hit the target frame and you'll get splinters of wood come down and raining on people. So you kind of forget that there are rounds going over your head, just 6 or 8 feet above you. It is very safe.
But everybody's wearing a helmet.
Everybody is definitely wearing a helmet. We would not want the Army to yell at us for not wearing helmets.
Yeah, and the last time I was there, they're just your generic contractor construction helmet kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're not protecting against bullet strikes. It's junk falling off the top of the mantle. The dirt that's on top of the bunker is the mantle. So crap falling off of that. Splinters, pieces of wood falling off the target frames. It's not like you're in a position where a bullet strike actually occurs in the bunker area. The bunker is very safe because of the geometry of it. The bullets will pass over or strike the berm that's the mound that's on top of the bunker itself.
Okay, so did we? I think we kind of sidetracked there. What would you say is sort of an ideal or a typical optic for this?
I would say that you want an optic that is easily adjustable for your known come-ups. You want to have your dope in advance, so at 100 yards if it's this, at 200 yards you adjust so many clicks and it's that. I don't think it really matters which way you decide to do that, if it's minutes or mils, or if it's 1/10 clicks or 2 clicks to a mil, or like the system of measure doesn't really matter as long as you know what it is for your rifle. I think the more important thing that matters is having the resolution to clearly see a 3-inch indicator at 1, 2, and 300 yards, and a 6-inch indicator at 500 yards. If you have that level of
The
resolution,
indicator is orange.
that's right. The indicator is orange, and the targets are typically cream and black. So it's a silhouette of a charging soldier with a sort of a disruptive pattern. It's not like a black silhouette. It's a black and cream silhouette on a white frame, typically. So you want to have that level of resolution that you can see that 6-inch orange disc on the black and cream target at 500 yards. If you can do that, you're pretty set. If you can't do that, you're going to want to have separate binoculars or a spotting scope where you can do that. I would say generally anything in the sort of 4 to 10 power range is probably enough magnification. Having more magnification is probably not a bad thing, although you will be moving a lot and breathing heavy. So having your 60 power crazy F-class scope, you may not be able to tell which target is yours, and you may not be able to get it settled down enough to actually find the center of the target. Similarly, on iron sight or red dots, you may be at a disadvantage because you won't be able to see those indicators on the sighters. But as long as you can shoot iron sights or a red dot well, and you know what the change is that you need to aim off with for the various distances, there's nothing wrong with using them. So if you have them, bring them and learn with them. Just means that with a red dot, you might be aiming at the top of the target or over top of the target.
Yeah, it's not going to be ideal, but you can go out and enjoy the day. It just might not be competitive.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't want to dissuade anybody that's thinking about doing it from not doing it because they're worried about the level of competition. It's a fairly small group of people that compete regularly in these events. You'll see the same faces all the time. And it's not like some other disciplines where there's a lot of ego involved. The first place guy is just as happy to loan you kit and give you advice as the guy in last place is. Because it is a very small community that shoots this, which is another thing I want to touch on that I don't really understand. But when it's time to go and shoot,
that seems to be pretty true for most of the ORA disciplines.
Yeah, it is. I guess we may as well get into that because that's kind of why I want to talk about it on the show, is to get a little bit of coverage and maybe reach a larger audience. Because a number of the provincial rifle associations have their service rifle disciplines. BC has one, Ontario has one. There's the national level one, the National Capital Region, the NCRAA has their service conditions event. The Operational Shooting Association in Ontario has their service conditions event. The Dominion of Canada Rifle Association holds the national level events. Like, there's lots of shooting to be had with these various groups, and most of them are provincially run, and most of them are very old. Like, the ORA has been around for 100 and something years now. So there is a lot of shooting to be had, but it is definitely a different format of shooting than any other kind of match. And part of it is because we shoot on military gallery ranges. So there is a butt system, which is unusual. And we're shooting military targets, usual. And up until recently, with the ORA anyway, we were shooting with members of the reserve or regular force army. Recently, we've had to change that with Canadian Forces Base Borden, where the ORA primarily does most of their matches. We're still working on finding ways to get the military and the civilians back to shooting together, because that's something that I think is a fairly uniquely Canadian event, is having military and civilian shooters sharing a range. That's not something that happens in a lot of other countries. Like, that's...
Yeah, especially not competing against each other.
No, that's a fairly uniquely Canadian thing. And again, a lot of the military competitive shooters, the guys that are on their rifle teams for their regiment or brigade, they're very good. And they're super easy to talk to. And they're a wealth of knowledge. So you can go to a Queen's medalist, somebody who has won a provincial or a national level event, and ask them, if I do this, or why do you do that? And most of them are very friendly people that will give you advice, if you try doing it this way, or have you looked at changing this to do something else? Because really, these people are not competitive. They're shooters, and I mean, the top guys are the top guys, but they're mostly looking to beat their own scores, because unlike IPSC or shotgun, like OAS shotgun matches, some of the other stuff, it's always the same 4 sets of matches. So we always know at 200 yards, It's 10 rounds. It's going to be a deliberate. So how many V-Bulls can I get this week versus how many did I get last week?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more focus on the skill side of things versus, let's say, the stage side of things. Like, like I said, OAS, IPSC, there's a lot of points are on the table in terms of how you break down and how you manage the stage. That is sort of taken out of it, and it's a lot more, core fundamental skills.
I would agree with that. The service rifle stuff very much focuses on the fundamentals of shooting and a little bit on some physical aspects of shooting. There are 100-yard dashes, so you have, at 200 yards, when the target appears, you have 35 seconds to move from kneeling at 100 yards to do a 100-yard dash, and then at 100 yards when you get there, get into the prone and fire 2 shots. And you only have 35 seconds to do that. So it's not a lot of time. It's not difficult, but, you'll be out of breath and your heart rate will be elevated and it'll screw with you a little bit because now you got to get your sights to settle and you have to calm down and you need things to work out. Can you give me a second? These dogs are driving me fucking nuts.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's fine. The fun of a live show.
I think they're done now. I yelled at them.
All right, I forget. We were talking about the shooting fundamentals.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you have to do 100 yards in 35 seconds.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of different things, but generally you have, when you're doing a rundown, generally it's 30 seconds to do a 100-yard dash kind of a thing. There's a little bit of other stuff. I mean, sometimes starting in different positions and then moving. So starting standing and then getting into the kneeling, or getting from the kneeling into prone, or starting prone and then getting up to do the 100-yard dash and then getting somewhere else. So there's some positional stuff because it is shot from, there is stages that are shot standing, prone. The only position that's not used is sitting.
So I guess maybe my last question is, if I was coming out to a match like this, what sort of accessory gear do I need? Can I bring my 3-gun cart to carry all my mags and ammo with me, or do I need to have carry it on my person?
Yeah, so again, this is one of those things that I think is kind of unique to service rifle shooting, which this is one of the things about SR that I like, is because you're doing rundowns, and one of the matches you're starting at 500 yards, when you're done your rundown, we don't walk back up the range to pick up all your crap. You then go into the butts because it's now your turn to score targets or run targets. So there'll be a person shooting and 2 people in the butts, and those 3 people will kind of cycle through, and if we have more people, then there's somebody that gets a chance to have a break or what have you. Generally, that's not the case. We tend to do this as there's somebody, or ideally 2 people working in the butts and 1 person shooting. So as soon as you're done shooting, you just walk the remaining distance, the 100 yards, or in one case, 25 yards. You walk into the butts, and now it's your turn to be the butts guy. And the guy that was in the butts, he goes out and does the shooting. So you need to keep all your stuff on you that you need for the duration of the shooting portion. That means all of your ammo that you need for the match, water if you're going to carry it. The other thing is you can leave stuff in the butts. So you'll find a lot of guys leave water and snacks and things like that in the butts, so they're not carrying it on them, but it's available to them. So when you're in the butts, that's your chance to rehydrate, chew on some beef jerky, what have you. And then when it comes your time to shoot, you just take your 60 rounds that you need for that match, and you go and you do your 60 rounds. I would strongly recommend having enough magazines that you don't need to reload during the duration of one of the matches. So as long as you have 60 rounds, you shouldn't need to reload. So that'll necessitate having 12 mags to do that. Pin to 5.
I was going to say, are you allowed to use pistol mags at all?
I don't think that there's anything to stop you from using pistol mags, but the pistol mags will put you at a disadvantage because you don't typically have enough height to be able to monopod off them.
So again, no bipod is allowed or nothing like that.
Yeah, no bipod, so no sling, no bipod. I mean, you can have a sling to carry your rifle if you want, but when we're running and shooting and stuff, you're not using it's not a supported sling position you're shooting from, and we're not running with the slings on because of safety factors. So there's a particular way that we run in service rifle where you hold the gun by the forestock. The reason being your hand is it's away from the fire control group, so you can't accidentally get your booger hook in the bang switch. The other thing is if you decide to do a faceplant while you're doing the 100-yard dash, if you hold the rifle by the forestock, you tend not to bayonet it into the ground, which is beneficial because you don't want your muzzle to be full of junk that you got when you bayoneted it into the ground. So
seems reasonable.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, so you got to get used to running with the rifle that way, but everybody does it, and after you do it a couple times, it makes a lot of sense. It's not a big deal. You just get to the position, whatever the distance is, and you move the rifle from holding it by the forestock and carrying it to, hand on the pistol grip, hand on the forestock, and then you shoot.
Right.
I would strongly recommend having some kind of way to carry your 12 magazines. Some sort of a vest. A belt would work, so if you want to set up your 3-gun stuff to have that many mags, something like that would be just fine to get started with.
And it sounds like you're going to need a dump pouch of some sort just to throw the spent mags into.
Yeah, dump pouch or stick them. There's enough time. I just put mine back in the magazine pouch they come out of because you do tend to have a little bit of time between the different portions of each stage. Like each match is a set of stages. Each stage will have a couple seconds in between where you have time to do administrative stuff because the guys in the butts need to change which target they're using and get instruction. And the butts officer needs to give a briefing, and the firing points officer needs to give a briefing. So you have some time to dick with your equipment.
All right. Well, I think
That's probably enough. Yeah, that's probably enough service rifle talk. Now
I think we've beaten this dead horse enough.
Yeah. Let's get into the news. So,
all right, where are we starting? What are we going through, and where are we starting with?
Let's do the first one. Ontario offers public sector servants a 7.5% raise, which the union is calling an unprecedented move prior to the 2018 election. And the National Post is down again on Monday night.
Is it really?
It really is.
No,
okay,
I read this one earlier, but all right.
Yeah, I read it earlier, but I wanted to cite some stuff in it again. Anyway.
Yeah, because the quotes from the union guy were awesome, going like, I can't believe they did this. This is such, like, they asked for no concessions. There was no negotiation. They were just handing out free stuff.
Yeah, so it's a new 4-year contract for OPSU, right? The Ontario Public Sector Employees Union. So they're going to get 1.5% increase, essentially now, July the 1st.
Immediately.
And then another 1% increase on January 1st of 2019. And then 1% every 6 months for the remainder of the 4 years. So this impacts almost 40,000 employees that are union members for OPSU. Everything from IT to prison employees. And I am shocked. I am shocked by the blatantness of the vote buying being involved. Like this is the Liberal government buying votes for their next election, because this is what I was predicting would happen when we talked about the whole Fight for 15 nonsense. We weren't going to see increases, but other people were, because the cost of living for everything else was going to go up. So in order for people to stay in jobs that were already above $15 an hour, they were going to have to get raises. And now the government is doing exactly as I predicted and giving government employees a raise to keep them ahead of the cost of living increases that the $15 an hour contributed to, so that they remember when it's time to vote Liberal in 2018 that they vote Liberal.
Yeah, I mean, like this, like the union rep. I mean, he called it. I mean, the union rep is on the receiving side of this. Is even going, yeah, this is purely a vote buying move. They offered this to us like unasked for, unnegotiated. They just came out with, here's a bunch of free stuff, here's a bunch of money, with no negotiation, no asking to rein other things in. They're just flat out called it in this article. Like his quotes are saying, this is clearly vote buying our votes for the next election. And yeah, well, thanks for the money.
Well, yeah, like it's not like Ops is going to turn it down and be like, you know what, keep your 7.5% raise. It's okay. We don't really need that.
Oh, absolutely. I don't. I mean, I'm not happy that they're getting it, but I don't begrudge them for accepting this. This isn't on them. This is on our government for just handing out buying votes.
Oh, absolutely. That's all this is. I don't really have anything else to add to it. It's that trickle down effect from the Fight for 15 thing that we saw, combined with the fact that the Ontario Liberals are trying to stay in power.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the next one. I want to talk about racism. I think it's only racist if I do this, but apparently the University of Toronto, or students from the University of Toronto, have decided that they want to have a black-only graduation. So if you're a black student, you get to go to a segregated graduation.
I have to imagine there's a lot of backlash over this. I mean, all the white kids are not allowing the blacks to attend their graduation.
Yeah,
that's super racist.
People that didn't look like me.
No blacks allowed is.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm talking all over you.
That's fine. It's the way. But I'm just thinking, like, if a whole bunch of, if they say, I don't mean that was.
Hold on for a second, Marty. I don't know if it's you or me, but somebody's internet is all kinds of jacked up.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, there's so much feedback and fishbowl stuff. I assume that you can hear me, but
as well. So I'll try closing the real things next break.
huh? I don't think it's.
How's that? Any better?
Speed test says all my stuff is. Oh yeah, that's better.
All right.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was like you were in a fishbowl, but the fishbowl was inside of another fishbowl.
Well, glad that's better, and I guess you get to edit, and I'm liking our live edits that's going on in the show notes right now.
Oh, do we have live? What?
Apparently, the audio sounded as if I was inside of a rubber duck.
Amazing. I don't know why Tim is listening to the show and not participating, but okay.
Yeah, I agree. We should, Tim, you should join in here. There's going to be some lots of opportunity for some good comments. So, anyways, blacks are not allowed at the main U of T graduation.
Yes. So a black presenting student organizer has decided that they would prefer to have a safe space for their graduation where only other black presenting University of Toronto students are allowed to attend. So if I do this and say that I only want people that look like me to be at my event, I'm a racist. But if Jessica Kirk does this, it's, I don't know, diversity the current year, take your pick. Hey, Tim's here.
Yeah,
Hey, Tim echoes.
Good evening.
Yep, Tim's echoing everything.
Damn it.
There's been some quality podcasts tonight, let me just say that. So we've split up this story enough here that's a bit difficult to drive this point home, but it's incredibly racist. This is incredibly racist. For one, it would be incredibly racist if we were excluding blacks from the main one, just like it's incredibly racist that blacks are excluding other races and requesting their own. I mean,
well, I would like to know what their rules are for this, because this is like this ultra progressive hippy dippy nonsense. So how black does somebody need to be in order to attend this event? Like if you have an Anglo parent and a Jamaican parent, are you black enough to attend the black student graduation? Or is only one of your parents allowed to be in attendance?
Is a super white person allowed to go and claim they're, sitting at the front of the bus type of thing?
Right, that's what like.
Is it heritage or skin color though?
Well, that's kind of my point, Tim, is that there isn't good, like, what makes someone black enough to be in attendance and someone else not black enough? Because if I did this,
the thing is, this is absolutely, like, I agree with you guys. This is like absolutely disgustingly racist, but it's the racism that is currently allowed in today's society. It's just the hatred of the white, the white people. That's allowed. So,
and to me, this whole thing, like it. I can't think of the word, but like it sort of makes light of the real racism that the blacks fought through in the past. Like they fought through real racism to eliminate this type of thing. Them sort of choosing to return to it, it kind of, it's a slap in the face of sacrifices that were made by previous generations to me.
Yeah, from an incredibly privileged group of people. Like these are university educated people. Like what percentage of Canada is university educated? So for these people to say that they need a segregated, graduation ceremony because of persecution it's absurd. These people are some of the highest, most,
Yeah, they have the same. They've been given the same opportunities as everybody else.
Well, you could argue that because of affirmative action, they've been given better opportunities than everybody else.
That's something I would assume, and I would like to do research before I claim that. But right now, I think that's a safe bet. Yeah.
How many student bursaries are there or other scholarship programs for straight white men versus, say, black people in general? Right, like there are no bursaries for straight white people. That's not a thing. Like those don't exist.
There's exceptional like scholarship type of stuff for basically for everything but white men.
That's right, because if you're a white man, you're automatically racist and part of the patriarchy. So I would actually, I'm counter signaling Tim is that the black people that are organizing this safe space event have actually been given more opportunities than their cohort.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But like, it just reminded me of a talk show I saw. This is probably even 20 years ago. So like, you guys can do the math. Around 1997, even in 1997, the wind was blowing this way, and I remember watching this talk show. And it was basically they're giving out scholarships to like students who were excelling. This was a good news show, and literally like they brought up this black male and they said he does this and this and this and he's got a grade point average of this, and they said here's an $8,000 grant or whatever from the so and so foundation, and the crowd goes nuts, and then they bring up like a black girl and they say, oh, she does this and that, and she's at this and she's on this board, like student board, and she does this and she's excelling in science, and here's a $10,000 scholarship. And it literally like went 8, 10, 12, and then a white guy came out and they said like, oh, and so and he excels in this and blah and this, and they handed him like a check for like $1,200. It was just kind of like, so even back then they were kind of doing this, this inequality.
Yeah, and it's like I don't understand at this point where the belief is coming from. Like, where do they see that white males are being given additional opportunity that others aren't?
Well, you get that sort of thing from the media. Because
but like, okay,
and academia.
Yeah, but like they have to you would think that they must be providing some evidence to these claims, right? Like they show me like.
Since when does a professor have to show their work, or when does the media need to cite real sources? Everything in the news now is anonymous. An anonymous source is indicated. Well, somebody is clearly doing the same thing with this. The media or the professors are saying, well, it's the patriarchy. You don't need to do more than that. I mean, if you want to make a more valid argument than blaming the patriarchy, you should just call them Nazis, because everybody knows if you call someone a Nazi, that makes them a Nazi.
Yeah,
but to me, it's like, okay, did these white males, did they not score the scores that they got on their high school courses that gained them entrance to these universities? Did they not? Do we not have a publicly funded school system that the whites, the blacks, the Asians, the whatever all go through? We have the same school system. It's free for all of us to go there, regardless of your skin color. So you have the same opportunity to learn and to perform. The scores are based, it's the same test that everybody writes. Where in that path is it being split out based on race? See that?
I think they're getting cause and effect mixed up.
No,
like,
it's
so I mean, I agree with you.
The fact that
we're not excelling because of the patriarchy. The patriarchy is the patriarchy, and I don't even want to go on patriarchy because this is a racial thing, not a sexist thing. But about like typical bashing that we've been receiving for like a couple of years is the white male is the devil, and it's just like you know what I mean? It's the cause and effect are might be switched. Like we aren't doing well because we're the patriarchy. We're the patriarchy because we're doing well. But it's like, but I got to tell you, like, I really don't see it. Like, if from my perspective, if you are like a black person and you were born in Canada, you've still got a huge leg up. Like, Canada is a pretty good place to be born into, because there are laws and stuff to protect you, and there are grants and stuff that, you know, and inclusions into universities that are, you know, give you a better chance at getting into a university than, you know, than I would.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, I got nothing else for this. I think we move on to the next one.
All right.
I love being able to reference the Huffington Post, because I always think that's funny. The LCBO is giving a 49% discount to government workers and diplomats. So for anybody who's not in the center of the universe, Ontario, the LCBO is our liquor control board. That's what we have to buy all of our liquor and most of our beer, except for the beer that we can buy at the beer store, which is not all of the beer. Don't let the name confuse you. So up until recently, the Liquor Control Board had a policy in place where the federal government, as well as foreign diplomats visiting Canada, were able to receive reduced prices on beer and wine and spirits. The LCBO has recently implemented a new program where they've moved to an automated system, and instead of processing things manually and applying different discounted rates to different brands and types of alcohol, they've just gone straight 49% discount across the board. Because that's how much tax is on our alcohol in Ontario. These are all of the various tariffs and taxes that we're paying for with our booze that go towards funding things like our healthcare system in Ontario. But don't worry, if you're a government employee, you still get the free healthcare. You just don't have to pay the booze tax.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the bigger story here is that it's showing the amount of taxes that we're paying on our alcohol. I'm not entirely surprised that this is in place for diplomats. I'm well aware that diplomats kinds of exceptions and perks for diplomats that are sort of reciprocated worldwide. So similarly, our Canadian diplomats in other countries are going to receive all kinds of exceptions in the laws and the taxation and things like that in those countries. So that seems to be a sort of cross, like sort of around the world. All countries, have basically let diplomats do whatever the fuck they want. That's sort of the way it is. Now, in terms of the regular government workers, I'm not entirely certain. I mean, what I can't get from this article is who does this apply to? What does this apply to?
But the special group.
Right, because it's not like everybody that works in government.
The special group.
No,
because of it. If it's being protected by a public sector union, if that's what makes you special, then that's kind of upsetting, because they're already making, more than a private sector worker, more than likely.
Right. So I said, I don't think it's just every worker. It seems to be there's a something that they call the government that can buy alcohol. So I don't know if it's for government functions, they can buy it at a certain discount. This article is kind of crap, and it doesn't really spell out what this means.
What I think this has got to be connected somehow to the vote buying you were talking about earlier. Like not only is
I don't know if it is, because I think that I don't think it applies broadly enough. Because it doesn't apply to it doesn't apply to government workers. This is going to be a select subset of government that's going to receive this. And let's say this is like government functions.
Yeah, it's like on Animal Farm when they decided that all the milk would go to the pigs in the farmhouse every day, and no one else would need the milk. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's assume that this is for government functions with international type, or something like that, does it make sense that our government buying alcohol is going to pay taxes to themselves? Like if this is for Ontario government purchasing for whatever functions, does it make sense that they would pay taxes?
No, I guess you could argue that, but like there's plenty of instances with the government that I take issue with, like when they'll lay a charge against someone and then they'll provide them with public defense and attack them with a crown attorney in publicly funded courts. So that's just absurd.
Yeah,
like we're paying for all sides of that, but that's just this. You are right, that is possible. It's just why get in this loop of taxing upon taxing and giving this to to pay taxes upon taxes for
I'm not saying that this is the case. The biggest issue is that we just don't know the details. The article does not link to anything. It doesn't give us the details. It's incredibly vague. So I wish I could kind of dig deeper into what this actually means.
Believe it or not, this was still the best article I found on the topic.
I was just
The Huffington Post has the best piece of crap available.
The high bar it said at HuffPo. Jeez.
So basically, at this point, I'm kind of reserving my disdain on this one until I can see the actual details, because I just don't trust. I don't trust the article at all.
Well, the poorly defined
that's
special
fair.
group doesn't help. Yeah. More questions than answers.
Yeah.
All right, what else we got? Let's 10 o'clock. I don't really want to talk about the police raid thing because marijuana. Let's talk about
very quickly about the sniper shot, the record-breaking kill shot in Iraq, because it's just goddamn ridiculous what he did.
That's right. The apology heard round the world. I've got a Globe and Mail link for people that want to see the details, but Canadian Special Forces sniper made a record-breaking kill in in Iraq last week with a 3,500 meter shot. That's right. They shot something 2 miles away. The previous record being held by a Brit at 2.4 kilometers. So no big deal. Just 1 more kilometer than before.
Yeah, just crushed the record. I saw some kind of breakdowns on this, and just not even taking into account Coriolis effect, just looking at bullet drop that would occur over this distance, and they're assuming the highest ballistic coefficient 50 round they could find, assuming average temperature and barometric pressure and things like that. It was over 800 feet above the target that the guy's aiming at to lob the 50 cal round in.
Yeah, I read. I did the same thing. Busted out the ballistic calculator. Read some stuff about 50 caliber. Figure that it hit him with the same force as a 45 ACP when it got there. Was probably traveling somewhere around 800 feet a second.
just lobbing it in there at that point.
Hoping for the best, but
crunching some numbers. That's 800 feet, right?
800 feet. Yeah, it's basically. Yeah. I think it was 44.5 or 44.8.
But these are numbers that Canadian
over the
average. Yeah, the average Canadian isn't going to understand what the hell you're talking about. This is 800 feet. There's about 10 feet in a story. That's 80 stories divided by 6. It's about 13 1/3 giant inflatable rubber ducks. That's how much high. Let's take it back to something that's firmly entrenched in our heritage, the giant yellow inflatable duck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you could 13 giant yellow ducks, the bullet would go over 13 of them. That's amazing. Not quite 14 yellow ducks.
No, 13.3.
13. The other remarkable thing with this, the flight time on that 50 cal round at 3.5 kilometers, somewhere around about 10 seconds worth of flight time. So from when he pulled the trigger to when he hit the insurgent, he had to know where he was going to be 10 seconds in the future to make that happen.
Jeez, that's like a quarter beer, eh?
And here's and just one last comment on that is, I mean, we mentioned earlier sort of F-class scope that we're talking about. Even at 1,000 yards, everything is blurry because of the mirage. At the temperatures and the distance that he's looking at, like that is absolutely a blurry blob that he is aiming at. Like no matter what scope you have, you cannot see clearly through the mirage. So that is like this entire everything about this shot is ridiculous.
I think that's going to stand for quite a while. But
yeah,
you don't know.
The previous records were all at the 2 and a little bit kilometer range. Like so the top 5 long range sniper kill shots, confirmed kills, 3 Canadians, a Brit, and a Yank. And the difference between the 2 previous Canadians, the Brit and the Yank, is something on the order of like 200 meters of difference. So it was like 2,300 meters, and then like the farthest one was like 2,500 meters. And this Special Forces sniper just threw another kilometer on top of that.
Yeah, but
that is so remarkably far.
Yeah, but what happened today is going to change all that. Today in the States, they fired their first high-powered laser from a helicopter, from a gunship in the States. So Raytheon has got those high-powered lasers, and they'll have no bullet drop. So and just to be fair, like I don't want to take away with goofing around with the skill and the that went into this shot. I just to me it just seems like people have a hard time thinking that good old Canadians can do that, but we have the Canadian Armed Forces has an excellent sniping school, and it's shown in that record breaking chart where it shows like we've got like 4 of the 6 people up there with the long range, the last long range records.
Yeah,
so
our
to the sniper
school
training.
is definitely one of the best.
Yeah, kudos. Good work.
Absolutely. The lessons learned since Roto 1 in Afghanistan and the changes that they've made in the sniper program have just been incredible in the last 10 years. And a big part of that, of course, is the equipment, but the training that our snipers get compared to, say, the Brits or the Americans, because the Americans have a lot more military than we do, and they have a lot more. They probably have more snipers in their army than we have people in our army, right? But we have some of the best trained snipers available, and we are equipping them with some really, really good firearms. Like this guy was using a Macmillan TAC 50 that was riding in a Cadex chassis. Like this is a high-end piece of kit. Like this is a $10,000 rifle. This isn't something that you're just going to go in and like buy off the shelf at Canadian Tire and then go out and start playing with.
Yeah, they didn't bet it with JB Weld.
No, this is a precision piece of equipment, and the training that's available in our sniper program is some of the best definitely in NATO, if not in the entire UN. I don't really have anything. Oh, you know what? The one other thing that I wanted to say about this, which will probably be a follow up thing in the future, is the opposition in the House is now asking why our special forces is operating in Iraq and making record-breaking kill shots. So there'll probably be the follow-up to that once there's more information available, because if I'm not mistaken, we just went on recess and that question won't get answered.
Yeah, but it's difficult. Like,
some
I
call
understand.
it recess, some call it summer break.
Yeah.
Don't you get summer holidays at your job?
Yeah, no. Turns out I still have to go into work.
Yeah, I'm in that boat too, eh? Got to keep paying those taxes. Let's keep the wheel going there.
How else can I afford to buy my alcohol at the LCBO?
We're not in a special group.
Okay.
We got to teach you how to echo, Tim.
Yeah. I only echo when I'm not trying to.
All right, so we have a couple topics. I know we're running a little late tonight, but I think by the time Andrew edits out all of the dead air that we had with audio issues and things, we have time for the last couple topics.
I want to take
the
10 seconds to hit. I do want to hit the marijuana busts, just for 10 seconds.
Oh, sure. Go for it.
And I just want to say that if anyone believed any liberal promise during the campaign, then you deserve to feel foolish. That's it.
I support that. That's
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, ask the natives how their drinking water is. Yeah.
Okay, so the quick one, we'll do the quick one first, Andrew, which is not the one you have in the show notes. We actually forgot to add the show notes. But you have all of the audio clips that I sent over, right?
I was just looking at that. I don't actually have the audio clip set up ready to go. I'm the worst.
Huh.
Is it 9 o'clock already?
Yeah.
Worst podcast host ever.
Ooh.
Why don't you play them and I'll put the better quality ones in post.
So I didn't set them up because I sent them to you instead.
Okay, well, why don't you give me another 30 seconds and we'll just fill this air with nonsense and I'll fix it later because I've almost got them ready to go.
Yeah, I went to get them all.
I went to go play them and I see that my jingle palette does not actually contain them. So
yeah, no problem.
We'll just fix it in post like we always do.
Yeah. Hopefully we have this all figured out by episode 88.
Post refreshes most.
Okay, almost there. I promise. Let me
Time for a patriotic dirty limerick. I got nothing.
Go ahead. I'm intrigued now.
I got nothing.
I mean, that's what they should have done for Canada's 150th. They should have had like a nationwide limerick contest. Like, what would have been more Canadian than that?
There once was a man from Napanee. I don't know.
I don't want to know.
No.
Okay, I think I got things sorted out here. This is
all right. So we'll start off with what's that?
They're all like numbered and stuff.
Yeah, I did that because you fucked up the order the last time.
Well, that will happen to the best of us. And also to me. Okay, am I just playing
do you have them all queued up, or?
Yeah.
No, because I'm starting with the other topic first.
Is that the Angry Tom one? Angry
Tom, yeah. All right, so this is just a question, part of the question period from Wednesday, but I think this is a fun one to look at. This is starting off with Tom Mulcair asking question in question period. So yeah, Angry Tom question.
There's a term for someone who commits to something in writing and then reneges on that commitment. It's called a con job, Mr. Speaker. When the Prime Minister got caught selling access to himself and his ministers in exchange for donations to his own political party, he decided to let the media attend rather than put an end to the sketchy practice. But last night, he kicked the media out. So, will there be any consequences for the Liberal Party after they broke the Prime Minister's rule on cash for access fundraisers?
Okay.
So as you likely got... Yeah, as you likely got from that, so there was earlier on in the Liberal government, there was concern about the cash for access. And so what he did was, in order to say that this was not cash for access, they invited the media, because then it wasn't private access with the prime minister because the media was there publicizing it. Then in a recent liberal fundraiser type thing where, I think this was like $1,500 per ticket, they kicked all the media out. Mulcair was commenting, basically, if the media is required for it not to be cash for access, and you kick the media out, have you not therefore done cash for access? So let's hear Trudeau's first attempt at answering the question.
Mr. Speaker, the federal level of government is among the toughest laws on fundraising of any level of government in this country. We will order.
Wow, I don't know what's more embarrassing.
So at that point, he sits down. Basically, he had no answer and went, and everybody started laughing at him. So he sat down and had the Speaker of the House reprimand everybody for being too loud and not being able to hear his answer. Now, during this time, go ahead, Tim.
Then his aide leaned over and said, "Show them your socks."
Well, I think you're likely not too far off. We've talked about this in the past, how the Liberals have been using sort of prepared answers for all these different topics. So, put on the spot, Trudeau's answer was, but now he gets an opportunity to review his notes while the Speaker of the House reprimands everybody. So now he gets asked to answer the question again. Now here's, 30 seconds later, he gets to try again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We take very seriously the strong rules that we have around donations to political parties here at the federal level, and that's why we've actually raised the bar and encouraged the other parties to follow suit, to have our fundraisers done in public places, to invite the media, to immediately disclose the list. These are things the Liberal Party is doing that the other parties will not do yet. When are they going to start being open and transparent with Canadians as well?
Okay, first of all, as well.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, did you guys catch it?
I caught it, yeah.
Sweet. Which is, before we talk about it, let's hear Mulcair's final response on this topic.
Get him, Tom.
Angry Tom is my favorite kind of Tom.
Follow sweet?
Because
so let me ask.
You got it. Yeah, to like a Tom, a career politician like Tom, to force your opponent to blunder to that level that's got to be one of his best days,
Oh, absolutely. Like, being able to destroy the sitting government like that with a snappy one-liner.
Yeah.
I don't care which political party you
let me ask you guys,
I want that to happen.
Let me ask you guys a question. Especially on this podcast, we have a mic in front of you. It's always difficult to get the words out. You're going to fumble your words. Your pressure's on. You're nervous. You're going to fumble your words. Fumbled your words to say a different word that's spelled the same.
Ah, yes.
I mean,
well done.
I've fumbled words and said words that are similar to the word I meant to say, like in terms of, they sound similar, or you'll mispronounce a word and things like that. I don't think I've ever said a word that sounds entirely different than the word I meant to say, but is spelled similarly.
Yeah.
Unless I was reading.
He was reading. Yeah, I think like a good example, like tonight, I think I said Animal House instead of Animal Farm. But I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sweet. It's like he thought
Instead of,
she was slipping him a hotel room number. Sweet 701.
So it was just one of those things that, like, to me, it highlights. We've talked about it before, how they're using canned responses, and how he has no ability to speak off the top of his head. And I think this just so much demonstrated the fact that, when he has to speak off the top of his head, you get the first response. When he gets a chance to read the answer he's supposed to give, he's able to give a sentence, but he's clearly reading it, as demonstrated by the fact that he misread suit as sweet.
Yeah, I think you've got it.
I really want to change my palette so that I can have the Justin Trudeau drop for Canadians Deserve Better, but then I'll lose the thing I just set up. So
Canadians
I give you,
deserve better than that.
That works too.
Thanks, Marty.
Okay, so that was that one. That was kind of short and sweet. The next
I see
thing
what you did there.
Yeah. So the next thing is the CBC. So
Sweet be sweet.
there's a link in the show notes. Yeah. So link in the show notes of a segment that was aired on the CBC. And this is around some comments that were in the debate period by Candice Bergen. And it's essentially referencing an article from the Toronto Star by Chantal Hébert. Now, is a very left-leaning paper, as we often refer to as the Red Star. Chantal Hébert is a very left-leaning reporter. And what this was referring to is the fact that Trudeau put a 50% female cabinet in place. And in order to do that, in order to make 50% of his cabinet ministers females, there wasn't enough females who were experienced in government. And so in order to make 50% of them female, he had to had no experience in government cabinet ministers. And as a result,
No trannies?
these women who were no self-identified as.
Okay.
So as a result, these women that were placed in these positions where they had no experience, they had no background, they had, no prior understanding of how government worked, they were put into these sort of front bench positions of, under high levels of scrutiny, into challenging positions that were, politically challenging positions for anyone, let alone someone that's inexperienced. These women were put into these positions solely so that he could meet his 50% goal. I mean, similar to what we were speaking about earlier, equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. He set a mandate. He had to have 50% female, and so he threw out, potentially more qualified candidates and put in unqualified people into these positions, solely to hit the 50% equal outcome. And as a result, there's been a lot of issues with some of these female candidates. So let's hear clip one, which is the Candice Bergen's comment in the debate.
The fact that our self-proclaimed feminist prime minister has put a number of earnest, well-intentioned, but inexperienced young female ministers into senior roles where they become political roadkill. As a female politician myself, it angers me when I see what the Prime Minister has done with his cabinet and those with immense professional potential. These are young people, these are people in his caucus with huge potential with the Liberal caucus, and they're being put in these positions just to benefit his cynical feminist brand.
Okay, now that is the clip as played on the CBC News. What is it was like the Sunday Scrum. Okay, it's called the Sunday Scrum. So that was the clip as played on there, and that was what they used to start off this segment on the CBC, where they're discussing this issue. on 3 political commentaries, political analysts to discuss this specific topic. So the article from the Toronto Star by Chantal Hébert, and as well as Candace Bergen's statement in the debate period. So they bring in what the CBC would say, perhaps call a balanced cabinet. There's the first off is a sort of an older female, clearly the Liberal speaker, as well as the second person that is a boring-looking male who I think is, I believe he is supposed to be the Conservative representative, as well as like a female millennial as the sort of the person number 3. So let's hear how they debate this question, because I think, first off, I think this is a perfectly valid and reasonable question. This article by Chantal Hébert, she points out various examples of how these females play this role, like Monsef, who we've spoken about before. She's pointed out multiple instances where these women have been put into positions that they were unqualified for, and were basically set up for failure. They were not given a path to success, and this has entirely damaged their career paths by being placed into such public featured positions before they were ready for them. So I think this is a perfectly valid topic for discussion, and let's hear how the CPC tackles this debate. So let's hear CPC question answer 1.
Susan, do you agree with Chantal Hébert, or is this actually sexism wrapped up in concern?
I almost always agree with Chantal Hébert, but I respectfully disagree on this point.
I meant to say Candace Bergen. Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, Candace Bergen, I definitely don't agree with, but I respect Chantal. Anyway, but I don't agree with this. I think that first of all, some of Mr. Trudeau's strongest performers are also rookies, and they're also in cabinet. And I'm thinking of Catherine McKenna, Jane Philpott, and especially Chrystia Freeland. The women ministers who have gotten into trouble are, yes, younger and less experienced, but so are a lot of people in that cabinet. And of course, Mr. Sajjan, the defense minister, was also grilled for some rookie mistakes.
Wait, so some of the rookie people that have done poorly, it's okay because they're rookie people?
Because the whole cabinet is stacked with young rookie people?
That's
so because some of them, as I love that Philpott is used an example of like how successful rookies can be as well. But
we have a segment that we're going to be doing in a few minutes called the Philpott Report.
Yeah, but
where we talk about how the government wastes our money because that's what the health minister did.
But what you're saying is let's make the government run less well for the sake of optics and the current year.
Right. So her argument is that because not all of the unqualified people forced into roles of that were very public facing, because not all of them have ended in disaster. Therefore, it's a good idea. I'm not.
What about Pardesh Chagger and Patty Heju and Christy Duncan and Marian Monsef and who else? Who else is a woman in cabinet that has not done well?
Who's the one that cried in the CETA
institutions?
Yeah, the one that cried during the CETA, like left and cried during the European trade agreement, and
our PM cries publicly also.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, but this is the CBC. They're going to do a fair and balanced report, I'm sure. So that was the Liberal. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. That was clearly the Liberal apologist. You expect her to put off something like that. Andrew's clearly not paying attention and answering a work call, but maybe he can still play the next clip. Nope. That's so we're going to have a pause here while we wait for Andrew to deal with his job.
Oh, jeez.
Because Patreon supporters are there's a lacking of.
He's wage cucking.
Patreon, Andrew would not need to take that work call.
Am I still muted? I'm still muted. Yeah, sorry. Work call. I'll fix it in post. If we could get a couple of more dollars, I wouldn't have to take work calls Monday night.
I was 10:30. Yeah, I was going to fill the dead air with some new age, definitions of words, and I was going to start with wage cuck.
No, that's okay. I'll just play. You guys are looking for the next one, right?
Yeah. Question and answer 2.
Do you think there's a sexist bias to
Are you going to play the rest of the clip?
Yeah, it cut out. He muted himself.
And Christopher Freeland brought home the Canada.
Okay, start it over and don't fuck it up this time.
But I have to make a phone call.
No. What's the clip? Like 90 seconds?
Do you think there's a sexist bias in this?
No, absolutely none whatsoever. And again, I echo what Susan said. Jane Philpott negotiated a healthcare accord with the provinces. Catherine McKenna negotiated the carbon tax with the provinces. And Christopher Freeland brought home the Canada-European Union Free Trade Agreement. These are 3 of the biggest accomplishments of this young government, and all under female ministers.
So first off, do you think there's a sexist bias in mandating a 50% female cabinet? No, not at all.
It kind of seems that by making it a mandate, that would have an inherent bias. Wouldn't it? Like, by making a mandate...
So, and again, this is, I think this is the guy that's supposed to be showing the other side. No, not at all. This is not sexist at all that he's mandated a specific number of each sex, as well as look at this example where, the Canadian-European Trade Agreement. Look how successful she was when she ran into the room crying and had to be replaced by somebody else to finish off the deal. Look what a great success that she was.
So many of our female ministers are such good examples to young women in our country of how they could grow up to be completely fucking useless.
And before we go too further down the road, there are a lot of women I respect, but just none of them are really liberals. No, and again, and that's, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a second, because that's kind of her last question, and I'm not going to go too far into their answers and things like that. But they're going to take this as we get later on into these clips, as saying that Candice Bergen was saying that females should not be in these positions. Case. That is not what she's saying, and I don't think any of us would agree with that kind of statement. What she's saying is that people need to be given an opportunity to learn and develop their role as a politician before being placed in these front bench cabinet positions.
Absolutely.
They need to be qualified for the job they're being put in. And
right, qualified, not in the correct part of anatomy. They need to be qualified for the job they're about to perform.
Correct. And placing unqualified people in a role is bad management. This is not an attack on the people doing the jobs. This is an attack on the person that put them in a role where they were not qualified and essentially has set them up for failure.
This goes down to the basic fundamental differences between what a liberal is and what a conservative is, and I'm not going to do a whole thing on it, but it's just like, have you guys ever taken the personality test where there's like 15 or 16 different personality types? And they either start with an E or an I, and one is like an intelligent and one is emotional. And most of the people,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you can, if you did a personality test and you do it fairly, it can genuinely tell you who you're going to vote for, and they're surprisingly accurate. And from what I've read, but the thing is, like, to the liberals, like these emotional types, like the signaling, the posturing is just like, oh, women deserve the right to do this, and everyone just claps without looking at the results, without looking at the logic of it. They just, women deserve a right to do this, and if you say, like Candace Bergman, if you say anything at all that counters that at all, even just the slightest bit, then you're hitting them right in the emotions. Even though, from my point, like she has a more valid point than like Trudeau and the Liberals. Like, she has a point. These women, their careers could be being ruined. Like, these are people who probably wanted to go into politics for like 20 years, and they could ride 4 or 8 years and then just get the hell out, like destroyed, all for the vanity of this prime minister and the fact that he needs to signal to people. Because the other interesting thing is that there does tend to be more E types than I types. So that's why I think democracy has failed.
Yeah, let's just let's kind of finish off the clips here, and then we'll kind of talk on a more sort of overall level. So let's finish this is the sort of the millennial female, and she gives basically no answer at all. But let's hear what she says.
Do I have to listen?
Clip 4.
It's a millennial. This will be terrifying, I'm sure.
Katie, what do you make of the allegations?
Yeah, I wish I could disagree with Susan or John just to liven up this panel. But no, this honestly to me feels like a narrative searching for a situation to wrap it around. I mean, journalists and, opposition members and pretty much everyone who isn't in government, we love any story that suggests hypocrisy. So this idea of, it's 2015 prime minister and his gender parity cabinet actually being, sexism in disguise, it's irresistible, but that doesn't actually make it true.
I wish I could be different, just like everyone else, but I can't be. Boo-hoo. Fuck.
Yeah, so I also like that she even highlighted the fact that, we're a bunch of shills that are all talking about the exact same thing on what's supposed to be a debate panel.
I want to be different because I'm a snowflake. Fuck off. Where's my helicopter?
Yeah, but this is a lot like the DR3, the Democrats are the real racist things. Like, Trudeau at any cost needed to signal that it's the current year, and these women he chose out of like optics and signaling, no matter, at any cost, they have to become ministers. And so, like, the fact that you know what I'm saying, like the fact that he thinks that he has to come in and lift these women up to make equality is sexist.
Absolutely. The fact that he's standing on top of their accomplishments, saying that they're only where they are because of me, is incredibly sexist and incredibly like patriarchal, and yet they don't see that.
No, they see socks.
Okay, let's play the last clip for this topic and I think this is everyone will be super aggravated after this last one. So let's play clip 5.
Do any of you think that the accusation itself is a manifestation of sexism?
I think it's a manifestation of great hypocrisy, especially coming from Candace Bergen, especially coming from, as a member of a former government led by Stephen Harper, in which I would argue most of the women were given very secondary roles. Rona Ambrose became virtually invisible.
Speaking of
during the
roadkill, when she was environment minister, right?
I'm sorry?
Speaking of roadkill,
yes, exactly.
When she was environment
and then
minister.
she was health minister, and they didn't really care about health. And then Leona Aglukak also.
Wow.
Yeah. So
So Candace
So it's-
Bergen only got to where she is because of Stephen Harper, who only put
Okay,
women in secondary roles. Is that, have I got that?
Yes. So what she just said, and she goes further on here, but I cut her off to try to keep things somewhat tight in the clips. So first off, what she's saying is that it's hypocritical for Candice Bergen as a female to say that females shouldn't be in this role. But what Candice Bergen is saying is that unqualified people should not be in this role. Result of his saying that 50% had to be female, he was forced to promote a bunch of females that were unqualified in these roles. So Candice Bergen's complaint was that he was, by him mandating 50% females, he forced a lot of new female politicians applied into roles that they couldn't manage. So her argument is solid, I'd say, and they're saying that it's hypocritical for her to say that because she's a female. So they're basically saying that what Candice Bergen is saying is that no females should be allowed in government. That's basically what they're saying that she's hypocritical for.
No, this harkens back to was it International Women's Day when I got good and drunk and we went on a few rants bashing the International Women's Day, and I said that there are women I respect, and to have an International Women's Day to just thrust and say everyone has, to be recognized on this day. Every
Right.
woman has to be recognized on this day. I said it cheapens the respect that everyone else earned, and that's exactly what's going on here. Like Candice Bergman has earned that in a game that was possibly stacked against her, whereas these ones were handed that position just because of their sex, just because of the signal.
Yeah, Candice Bergen, just flat out, she is awesome in the House. She's great in debate. She's great in the question period. She's earned her role, and that's right. To move on with the secondary comment she makes is Rona Ambrose. And same thing. Rona Ambrose was a terrific party leader. She was great in the House. She was great in question period, great in debate.
Absolutely.
And they actually acknowledge that. And this is what I find interesting with this chick that talks about this. And she's, she actually goes on further talking about Rona Ambrose. And she lays the blame at the Harper government. And her argument is that the Harper government forced Rona Ambrose to be a backbench politician. And, she was a backbench politician, and then she was the health minister, and where she had issues, or she was the environmental minister, where she had some difficulties, and then she was the health minister, and before eventually becoming the leader of the party. And once she was leader of the party, we got to see that she was incredibly, she was a very strong leader. She was very qualified for the role. She was smart. And so basically what her argument is that because of look at how good of a leader Rona Ambrose was, those years where she was a backbench politician, where she was, learning the ropes, those were wasted because she was a great leader and she should have just been the leader day one. The fact that she was a great leader because of the experience that she received by spending years in other roles. Yes, she made mistakes and was allowed to make mistakes in roles where it was recoverable for her career.
Yeah, but this is exactly the kind of crap you expect from a leftist moron like these people who want to vote for Bernie Sanders because they just want instant gratification. Like Rona Ambrose went in there and she worked hard and she paid her dues and she was a good leader because of that, because of the hard knocks and the stuff. You're right. But like like these people, they just want and these snowflakes and these like they just want like, oh, let's put the young let's put the young ministers into positions and just let's if they just make a mistake, then you're probably just being misogynist.
like it's incredible to me that they look at like something like Ron Ambrose, and like that's a perfect example of someone, who started off in politics. They started off in a lower role. They kind of worked their way up. Yes, they had their stumbles, but they had their stumbles in a position where that was recoverable for their career. They're able to recover and then take over the leadership and kick ass and in a leadership role based on their years of experience, their own mistakes, like that. That's exactly the reason Candice Bergen is saying, by putting these people immediately in these, very public roles, you're doing a disservice to them. You are careers as a politician, before they even have a chance to build one. By letting people develop their career, learn the ropes. That's how you bring more females into leadership roles. That's how you bring the females into politics, by letting them develop themselves. But by forcing them into positions that they're destined to failure and tanking their careers before they even started, you're doing a huge disservice to them.
Yeah, but again, there's a logic there to what you're saying that I really question whether a liberal can grasp that, because they're all emotionally based.
Right. I mean,
they have to.
They're not going to listen to this podcast then.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was just a bit of, and so again, actually, besides all the talk, one of the main things that I want to drive home on this, how the CPC covered this topic, which is I want to talk about this, is this absolutely, as you can tell from our discussion of this is absolutely a topic that was worthy of debate. Candice Bergen's point was I think astute. Even it's written by the main article, Chantal Hébert, in a liberal newspaper. This is very much a valid topic of discussion. This is very much a valid topic, and the CPC, their presentation of this, they bring on three people who all side and say, this is crazy, this is hypocrisy for her to even suggest that women shouldn't be in these roles, as she said. They only give you the liberal side. And by doing so, they even have their person that is supposed to be, he's the conservative, and even he agrees that this is crazy.
Even the old white male thinks so.
Exactly. They present it as if conservatives don't agree with this. It's crazy talk from the Conservative Party. They're just so far out there, nobody can even agree with it. Nobody can even defend them. That's how out there they are. Presented. And this is nothing but propaganda. For the CBC to put this package together and present this way, this is absolutely propaganda that was entirely intended to squash this rhetoric that was coming out saying that and this is similar to what Scheer has been pushing, is that actions only hurt those that they claim to help. This example was coming out there and was basically showing exactly that. And the CBC stepped in and tried to squash this story before it got legs. And they made this debate happen where we all agree on one side. It's all crazy. And this is how CBC is propagandizing. It's disgusting.
Well, you've got to look
muted.
at.
I just don't have anything to add.
Yeah, you got to look at like what percent of the population listens to the CBC, and I think it's sizable in Canada. A lot of them do it out of habit. I don't know. I'm probably going to tell be a little telling of my age here, but I remember when through my until I was about 18 or 17, we only had 3 channels in my small town that we lived in. And shit, that CBC came in better than any of them. It's you would watch this, you'd watch this when it came on. It's just CBC is
That's
clearly,
all we as a kid.
yeah. But to me, I've never really. It's just, you give me the facts and let me make up my own mind. And if people can't see the difference between that, then that's just another failing in today's society. But not a lot of free thinkers out there that know how
But is it, of our society somewhat not is there responsibility for that failing not somewhat laid upon the feet of the CBC for presenting news this way?
Absolutely. The news should not be presented with their particular spin and narrative. The news should be presented in a factual and impartial manner. The fact that they're putting their own spin on it and telling you what to be offended by is the major problem with all of the mainstream media, not just the CBC. They just happen to get government funding to do it.
Yeah, and so again, it's a liberal article, a liberal in a liberal newspaper, and yet they couldn't find a single political analyst who could argue this point.
Yeah, you'd think until they did that, it would be glaring that hey, our job isn't done yet. Maybe don't even hold the show until we get that person. I bet you 30% of the population are conservatives, real conservatives, not like this guy.
Right, this is a I said, we talked about, this is a valid discussion topic. It's very much at least worthy of having the debate about. And yet they couldn't find a single person to say anything supporting that view. Not even a single well, kind of, but no, they're just flat out, well, no, this isn't sexist at all. This is, just flat out denying every aspect of this. It's
but I think what
purely propaganda.
I guess what we're doing is we're looking again just at the logic, but we're looking at like when Candace said that, that's almost like political suicide. You can't that was incredibly brave of her to stand up and say that, and you're not going to get a whole lot of other people because that's just not the way the wind is blowing. You're not going to stand up and say, yeah, everything this guy's doing, because you're counter signaling what seems to be, because of the media, a very popular opinion.
Yeah, I'll say it right now. If you want to see what women can do in politics, take a look at Candace Bergen, take a look at Rona Ambrose, take a look at Michelle Rempel. These women are in that position because of how qualified they are, because of how astute they are. They're there because of their qualifications. They're there because of their previous experience and their resumes, and they are lighting it up in the House.
Oh yeah, when Mr. Socks and Hair, our Prime Minister, is out there, and Angry Tom is coming for him, he wishes he had the intelligence of those 3 women you mentioned.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it for that topic.
Okay.
Unless you guys want to add anything else.
I think we killed it. Good work.
It's received a fair share of equality. So,
yeah, that's something a little bit different than what we normally do on the podcast in terms of analyzing CBC shows specifically, but if you guys enjoyed it or not.
I liked it. That's what counts. Because really, we do this to entertain me.
We're counter signaling
let's
the
do something
state
that doesn't-
propaganda.
Okay, something that's less exciting to talk about. We're bringing back the Philpott report. I know we haven't done a Philpott report in a while, but the Philpott report is named in honor of our money mismanaging health minister Jane Philpott. This particular segment, the Trudeau government has decided to give $36.2 million in taxpayer funds to Formula One racing.
I'm sure we're going to get a good return on our investment on that, right?
I don't even know what we're running a massive government deficit. We have hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on infrastructure. But we're going to give $35 million to F1 racing? Okay, so this is for the Canadian Grand Prix, which is supposed to be the biggest motorsport event in Canada. I don't really think of F1 racing as a terribly Canadian activity, but sure. What's the question?
How much did they donate towards the charity shoot?
Let me just if I sum that and carry the one, nothing. They gave us nothing.
Then I'm against this.
Which is exactly how much they should be giving the Canadian Grand Prix. Because why is the government subsidizing sporting events?
I don't know. I kind of remember this echoes. This reminds me of the Pan Am Games.
But like, at least the Pan Am Games, there'd be Canadians involved.
Right. This is not even. We're not sending like a Canadian team. It's not like Pan Am or Olympics. It's not generating us a significant revenue base. We're literally
but
giving
there's some money
to
that's going into Toronto.
But we're giving money to a media conglomerate that owns the Canadian Grand Prix. This media conglomerate, Liberty Media, reported a revenue of almost $5 billion with a B dollars in 2015. Why are we subsidizing them with taxpayer funds when they're already a highly successful and profitable company? I don't have anything else. Like, I don't understand why we're giving them money. And this is the Philpott report this week. This is what your government is spending stupid money on.
Is that like a rhetorical question, or do you want me to just shout out like kickbacks, slush funds,
Burn the witch.
Honestly, so we talk about this as going, look at how ridiculous this is. And they're going to use this as a re-election type of thing, saying, look, put the money that generated revenue in the GTA. And this money, taxpayer money on the Formula One race, that brought all kinds of tourism dollars to the GTA. Therefore, all of you in the GTA should vote for us.
No.
Defend that argument.
They don't even have all-dressed chips in that shithole.
True. Wait, not true. Toronto has all-dressed chips, but they're still a shithole.
Yeah, it was the best drop I could come up with. I got nothing else. I guess they can bring it out at election time and be like, oh, it's promoting tourism in Toronto. They can see the rubber ducks and a Formula One race. But I mean, really,
and that's all they need to do. You're dealing with
Yeah,
simpletons that live in Toronto.
Yeah, but this is all comes down to the fact that the people don't really even have the general person in Canada doesn't even have a concept of tax money and what a deficit is and how much debt we have.
Right. Because they live in Toronto.
It should, yeah, and it should all come down to the fact, like, if you run your government at a if you break your budget and create a deficit like year after year after year, that's like a system should just step in and stop you. And you should lose your pension and you should lose your wage. Like, there's just no. Like,
who was it that introduced deficit financing in our country?
I don't know.
Was it Trudeau Senior?
I think it was Trudeau Senior.
Oh, we missed out on the.
I'm not entirely certain that. I believe it's Trudeau Senior that brought that in. I'm interested for any of your listeners. Prove us wrong. Because none of us are saying we don't know that for certain, but I believe it was.
Yeah, and if you want to connect a few dots, you could say that he was a big fan of Castro, and
well, some of his relatives were, at least.
Yeah, I don't know, like this whole leftist Marxist, like it just doesn't mean, like, it all comes down to the fact, like, the liberals just don't seem to give a shit about running the budget like running the country like a business. Like, anyone who's run a household budget successfully can sit there and look at what the government's doing and go, this is stupid. It's time to cut up the credit cards,
Right.
But like, it's fine, and the government can do that and buy votes and run up deficits. Like, it's just really frustrating. Like, just no one seems to give a shit that we're just on track to have deficit after deficit after deficit, like under this government. Like, this, it shouldn't even be an option. It shouldn't even be on the table. If you're going to sit there and make deficits that are $10 billion to $30 billion a year, it shouldn't even be viable. And like, a mechanism should step in and just stop it.
Why is the audio doing that? Is Marty's internet broken again?
Yes, it is.
Oh, Marty, your internet is so broken.
Your internet is as broke as Ontario.
You couldn't even finance a single rubber duck with that.
Are we good now?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so possibly okay, I'm not saying, I'm looking at trying to quickly intern this somewhere between Diefenbaker and Trudeau. That's where deficit started coming in place.
We should pass some sort of a law against deficit spending. You should not be allowed to spend money you don't actually have.
And if anyone's interested in this, you can read you can read Democracy, the God That Fails. And I haven't finished it yet, but he basically compares monarchies to democracies, and he basically says like a monarchy, like a king has a certain interest in making sure that he passes, his country in good health down to his children. Whereas a Democrat goes in there, like a democratically elected official, and they have 4 years or 8 years to just spend as much money as they can and try to get that shiny UN medal. And they don't give a shit how the country is left.
So, almost liking that, look at how publicly traded companies versus privately traded companies are. If you are a publicly traded company, your CEO, your executive branch, is only looking at how to make the most amount of profit in the next quarter. Whereas if you're a privately traded company, they can have a much longer term. Like, what will benefit this company over the next 5 years or the next 10 years? How can we invest in our future? How can we build the company and grow the company over the next, several years? It's very similar with our politics right now. Is they're only looking at how can I get reelected.
Well, that's another debate that we can have, because I still contend that we should not be paying our politicians, because that would disincentivize people from being politicians strictly for the financial gain.
Yeah, and paying them, we should be paying them only what we valued them, which is mostly nothing.
Yeah, we've kind of LARPed about electoral stuff before and how to run a better government, but
yeah,
mostly if we could stop deficit spending, that would be a good start.
Yeah, I think deficit financing was a big issue.
But yeah, and we can't go into it in like huge detail, but deficit spending, as soon as you say, well, we can just run a deficit, well, like if you understand market economics, that affects the market. If you said we can't go into a deficit, that would affect the market, and like prices would drop. Like it's just they can't not. We should almost do like a 5 or 10 minute segment, a show where we just talk about like basics of government and economics. But I don't know if people would be interested in that. If so, maybe mention it. But
yeah.
Just so like our listeners, like maybe the listeners know more about it than I do. I'm not, I have no idea, but I'm just saying, like, it helped me to learn this stuff to better argue against liberals, which then I turned out, I realized that is a waste of goddamn time anyway. So.
Well, I mean, as long as the deficits are paid back by the party that sort of accrued the deficit, so it comes out of the campaign budget of the whatever party accrued the deficit, I'd have no issue with it.
Yeah, but the fact that like Wynne is going to get full pension. For you look at what the Liberal government has done to Ontario in the past 10 years.
Well, I know. I mean, that's a tough of it. I mean, I don't need to get that angry right now.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's start
Tom.
This thing up. Gavin's not here to tell everybody about the charity shoot, but the charity shoot is quickly approaching. The course of fire is on our website. Go to CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Look way up at the top, 7th Annual Canadian Firearms Podcast Charity Shoot. Make sure you register on Practice Score, although at this point, you're probably too late to get a t-shirt. You might still get lunch. Go ahead, register, bring your guns, bring your ammo. If you need stuff, let us know what you need. We'll have some things available there.
Can I just say, register on Practice Score. Register on Practice Score, get your shirt order in, and you will get one of the few extras we're making.
That's right. Get your registration done now.
Yeah.
Now you're wrong. Fix yourself.
Yeah, there are people who have registered and requested a shirt size. Their shirts they will get in the size they requested. We're making extra sizes, and that's it. And if you want to secure one of those extra sizes, get in the Practice Score.
Speaking of which, Andrew, what t-shirt are you wearing today?
Oh, I'm practicing for the Canada Day celebrations. I've got my Happy Birthday Canada Taxation is Theft t-shirt. It's quite good.
That's
also made by Tim's Good T-shirts.
They're quite good.
Yeah, that looks like a quite good t-shirt.
Honestly, this is like my new favorite t-shirt. I'm going to be wearing this frequently.
You might trigger a few people on Canada Day.
I'm quite jealous that I do not own one currently.
Yeah, the Tim's Good T-shirt printing is coming along nicely. This is my first multicolored. You might call it a diverse T-shirt.
It's diverse, yeah.
Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
has both black and red and white. Well, mostly. I don't know. What is the official shade that we're calling this? Is it man white?
I call it man white.
It's not really white. It's like I did the laundry, so it'll be fine because it already looks like I washed it.
It's the color of Mel Gibson's shirt in The Patriot before he got English blood all over it. It's man white.
Hilarious.
All right, good outro, guys. So, Tim, what's your website?
That's my website. You can find me at timsgoodtshirts.ca. You can order up some t-shirts there. You can show off, do some signaling. And you can also find me on Facebook at Tim's Good T-shirts. Facebook.com/Tim's Good T-shirts.
All right, and the podcast can always be found at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com or Facebook.com/CanadianPatriotPodcast. And we're always looking for more feedback, so you can send it via email at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Think. Andrew, where can people meet you?
A good place to meet me is going to be at the podcast charity shoot on July 8th at Guelph Run Gun Club. But if you want to get in touch with me, the best place to do that is through Ragnarok Tactical. I can teach you a little bit about guns, or if you want to buy some first aid stuff, I have a lot of bandages that I need to sell.
You got to start shooting.
And where can they buy bandages?
Oh, I'm sorry. RagnarokTactical.ca. Click on the shop button. You can see all kinds of cool things that you might want. Bandages, tourniquets, other kinds of bandages.
And Tim makes a good point in terms of driving demand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you catch that or no?
No.
Oh,
you said you got a lot of
start shooting people.
I said you had a lot of bandages to move, and I said you got to start shooting people.
I missed that, and also that's a terrible idea.
It is, but the bandages they'll be 50% off for a special group of people. 49% off.
And tourniquets. Come on, guys.
Editing this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's
I have to apologize.
We're done.
I
swear to God, he will tourniquet you.
Sorry, Rod. I'm just leaving this in. I'm not even going to edit it. Fuck it. We'll do it live.